Hi, I'm Lisa Eddy, your host of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. I'm so glad that you've made your way here and that I'm now sharing these podcasts here on YouTube. In my 25 years in the beauty industry, I have worked with thousands of women. I have witnessed so many beautiful, powerful, smart, and kind women who are hiding instead of shining. My mission is to empower you to own your true power and beauty inside and out, to be truly confident and shine through your skin. Lord knows the world needs your light. I'm committed to helping you understand the choices that you are making that are working for or against you. I'll also be sharing beauty tips and tools your mother never taught you, and together we will bust urban beauty myths. Make sure to subscribe today to receive episodes right when they are released. For those who prefer listening to the audio podcast, head over to sacredbeautylifestyle.com. That's sacredbeautylifestyle.com, and you can find the platform of your choice. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. I am so excited to share Alana Van Der Sluys with you today. She is a certified intuitive eating counselor who helps people become their healthiest body, mind, and spirit through intuitive eating and mindset work. Her business is called Freedom with Food and Fitness. She coaches and empowers those looking to heal their relationship with food, weight, and their bodies through intuitive eating and mindset work. I love what you are doing, Alana. Welcome.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Seriously, I'm excited to delve into this because so much of what you do, the body, mind, and spirit work, is so relevant for our listeners on the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast. So thank you for carving out your time and sharing your wisdom with us. We'd love to hear all about you. In fact, if you can start with maybe sharing a little bit about you, your journey, and where you are today.
Sure. So my journey, I feel like this is a lot of people's journey in this space. We help from a place of where we've been hurt the most. And when I was in my 20s, I had three undiagnosed eating disorders. So I had orthorexia, which isn't diagnosable technically yet as an eating disorder, but it's a fixation with quote unquote clean eating and kind of being very rigid in the type of eating that you engage in. There's definitely morality between good foods and bad foods. And I had binge eating disorder where I would heavily restrict my food intake, let's say Monday through Friday. And then on the weekend, I would have a cocktail or two with my girlfriends and my inhibitions would be lowered. And I would say to myself, I've been so good all week. I've been working out and I've been eating clean and I deserve that plate of nachos, right? And I would start eating and I wouldn't be able to stop. It was like something had taken over my body. And when I had come up for air, there was just so much guilt and shame and fear of weight gain after that. I would say to myself, you know what? Come Monday, I'm going to be quote unquote better. So that cycle went for years and years. And then I had body dysmorphic disorder, which is when you fixate on either a very minor or a simply perceived flaw somewhere on your body. So for me, it was my stomach, and I would body check for probably collective hours every single day, different lighting, different times of day. And I was so fixated on this part of my body that I would restrict my calories so heavily in order to change that one part of my body. But it was really to the detriment of the rest of my physical health and even more so my mental health. So that was my 20s. And where I think that came from, and I hope, not hopefully somebody resonates with this, but if some of your listeners are hearing this and saying that this might be me, I want to tell this story. When I was a child growing up and into my teens, I always had a way to measure my worth. It was grades, it was gold stars, it was extracurricular activities. And as any adults listening know, when you get out of schooling, there's no right or wrong answer on the test of life, right? It's just you do your job, and there are people, and you're thrown into this larger pond of humans that you're never the best. And it's very hard to definitively get, the quote unquote A or the gold star, or the pat on the back. And without that external validation, without that barometer of measuring my worth, I felt very lost. And I had grown up during the 90s and the early 2000s where there was a huge fixation on being super, super thin. And that was considered beautiful. That's the message that we were told. So I said to myself, well, maybe this could be the way that I can control my worth. If I control my weight and I stay really, really fit and get as fit as I possibly can, then I would know in a measurable way that I was still worthy. So that was kind of how I came to this work. Is I was very, very sick and nobody knew it. I was never diagnosed with anything because I looked very similar to the way I look now, which speaks to how underground and sneaky and nefarious, these eating disorders and disordered eating can be. When I found intuitive eating, I just found a couple of podcasts and people were talking about similar things that I was experiencing. And I was like, oh shit, like people go through this. This isn't just me. I'm not broken. This is like a thing that people go through and people experience and people think about. And I started to devour anything that had to do with intuitive eating. I read the book, I did the workbook, I listened to podcasts constantly. And I don't recommend this to anybody, but that was how I healed. I was too stubborn and too fixated on the message that mental health was something that you needed to invest money in. I was like a broke grad student. I was like, I can't afford to get help for this. I have to do it by myself. And I did, but it took 7 fucking years to do it. It took way longer than it should have. It stole most of my 20s, but I did heal through intuitive eating. And because of how grateful I was for the power of that work and the people in that space, I've been an English teacher for 11 years. That's like my day job. And I wanted to take what I know of how to guide and lead and coach people and teach people. And I wanted to marry that with my love and my passion and my appreciation for intuitive eating. That's kind of how Freedom with Food and Fitness was born.
Mm. Wow, such a great story. It's so fascinating because listening to you speak, I imagine this is a lot more common than we realize.
Yeah. I wish I had the stats, but there is a crazy stat where the amount of people who would label themselves as dieters, how they will eventually develop eating disorders. And I would argue that anybody that is on a diet can be categorized as a disordered eater. It's any time that you are not simply tapping into the innate wisdom of your own body to determine when to eat, when to stop eating, what to eat, that's a diet. And that is disordered. It's using external rules and parameters to guide what you should be doing with your body instead of listening to what your body can tell you all on its own. But we've been thrown into a society where we're told constantly you cannot trust your body because you cannot be trusted with the Oreos. Therefore, you need to listen to the quote unquote experts, and we will tell you how to eat, when to eat, what to eat, how to exercise. And this false narrative that if you do those things, you will look like this. And when you look like this, you will be happy and you will be accepted and you will be loved and unicorns will fly out of your ass and you'll be great. And
Stop.
it's like the most bullshit narrative I've ever heard. But I can't even I'm glad I made you laugh. And we're laughing at the unicorns coming out of your ass. We're not
Yeah.
laughing at the people who buy into this because
No.
I bought into this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people buy into this. And I mean, the reason we buy into it is because if we're told the same narrative over and over, our brains will wire that belief and it soon seems like it's like a fact.
Girl, it's unbelievable how easy it is to brainwash people and the way that commercials do this, especially if people are watching TV or listening to things right before they go to bed. It kind of seals it into the subconscious. But also listening to you talk, like, yes, we're trained away from trusting our intuitive self in every category in life. I think we're really trained away from who we are and our own inner knowing. And so, yes, why would we trust ourselves with eating? But also that coupled with the emotions of a young woman, especially, I think gets really played into this piece. And then the false images that are shared in media that just have us reaching for these unrealistic, unattainable beauty goals, which actually pisses me off. Like, that is one of the things that pisses me off so much, that I don't use any filters on my Instagram, because I want people to know what I look like, what a woman in their 50s could look like. I think that there's so much delusion.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I have so many clients that come to me and they say a lot of their issue is comparison. And a lot of it's done on social media. And it's such a double-edged sword because, yes, it's a great way to connect with people that we lost touch with. And, you know, for somebody like me whose business is completely virtual, it's wonderful. But the reason I have a business that I have is because everybody and their mother is on social media comparing themselves to other people and comparing themselves, as you said, to these unattainable standards. Like, there are supermodels that don't look like supermodel. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't even look like this image that they're putting out there. It is filtered. There is lighting. There is Photoshop. There is, I mean, all of these things, they take 500 pictures to select the one that looks the best. Everyone's putting their quote unquote best foot forward, and it's making everybody else feel like they are not enough. And I had one conversation with a client who was saying that, you know, she's has 2 kids, she's in her 40s. She's like, everybody has cellulite, which is true. Literally, virtually almost every woman has cellulite somewhere on their body. But she's like, I don't see it anywhere on social media. She's like, I don't even know what a 40-year-old body is supposed to look like because I don't see it anywhere.
No, it's interesting. And it's a fine line too, because I don't believe in aging in the way we're taught either, which is kind of another topic. So when you say what a 40-year-old body looks like, because people often think that you have to gain weight after you give birth, like that you're at a new body weight for years or the rest of your life, which I don't believe is true, or that you have to have back pain when you grow up. I call it growing up, as we age, just to be clear, that there are things that I think that we're taught that don't need to be, but then there are things that are actually real and, kind of across the board that many people deal with that are totally hidden from us. So it is very confusing. And I love that the supermodels, there are several, I think, that have come forward the last several years sharing, like, oh, yeah, I didn't look anything like that. Or even releasing. I remember getting so excited several years back when somebody released pictures of the actual shoot, and I can't remember the model's name right now, of what, oh no, this is what it actually looked like. And I think that offered a sense of like taking the pressure off, a sense of, realism for a moment. And I'd love to see more and more of that. But I think that contributes immensely to this obsession that you're helping people with.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bitch because we want to be perfect and we are killing ourselves for this vision of perfection that we're supposed to attain. And yet at the same time, the people that we connect with the most are the authentic people. Like the people that are just real. We're like, oh my God, that's so refreshing. Oh my God, I love this person. I love when people that I follow and people that I aspire to be like in business and in life tell me all about their fails. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, this person's a human too. And they're crushing life and they're enjoying life and they are owning those mistakes. And I love that. I love hearing about people's mistakes and flaws and failures because it's the only way we get anywhere. And that's another thing a lot of my clients deal with is this all or nothing thinking, this black and white thinking is if I don't do it perfectly, I have to beat myself up. And it's like, no, girl, like I got rejected for my book deal 90 times. Like there's a whole
Really?
oh yeah, there's a whole folder. I have a whole folder of rejection letters. No, you don't have a big enough audience. We don't go, this is not the type of stuff we publish, blah, 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 whatever. And I was just like, and every time I would get one, I would be like, not for me, not for me,
Oh
not
my
yet,
God.
not yet. Yeah.
I love your response to that because we did not announce that yet, but I know you do have a book coming out, I believe, in the spring.
Yeah.
Want to tell us a little bit about your book since we're talking about that now?
Oh, yes, I do. So
Yeah.
it's called the main title is the title of my business. So it's Freedom with Food and Fitness, and then the subtitle is How Intuitive Eating is the Key to Being Your Happiest, Healthiest Self. And I think that really encapsulates what intuitive eating is for me. The way that I teach it to my clients, if it were an elevator pitch, it is the way for you to pursue health without obsession and restriction and dieting. So yeah, the book is going to be released in the spring. I'm not sure of the date yet, the launch date, simply because I know we're still kind of in talks with our distributor. So it's going to be published by Urano Publishing, and it's split into two. Half of the book is about food, the other half is about fitness, and there's already an intuitive eating book out there that goes over the 10 principles, and but so I didn't want to approach it that way. So the book is really just a lot of anecdotes of my own personal experience throughout the journey, because it's not a linear journey. There's so many ups and downs and nuances, and I wanted to show all of those parts, all of those sides of the journey, the way that somebody can experience it. And in addition to my personal experiences and my stories, is lots of very actionable, very realistic tips, tricks, strategies, hacks that you can implement that day, that you can that can get you one notch closer to being an intuitive eater and finding that food freedom and ditching the diets for good.
That is fantastic. I love that it's so personal. If I am correct on this, I believe the book you're talking about that's already out there with intuitive eating, did a man write that? Is that a male author?
Two women, two women.
Two women.
Evelyn,
Okay.
yes, yeah, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, and I studied under Evelyn to become a certified intuitive eating counselor. They are phenomenal.
Mm. I must have been mixing it up. The reason why I was thinking that because I thought it's so relatable to hear a woman's story and accounts of, the failures or, how do you get through this? I think that will be incredibly valuable. And what a beautiful example of your own inner intuitive knowing and guidance and listening and not taking somebody else's opinion of you personally. Bravo for your persistence and knowing that, no, I meant to write this book. So clearly you're not the person to help me with that. Thank you. Bye. Moving on. Like, that's awesome.
You know what? I knew I had something to say, and I mean, my undergrad is in journalism. I've been writing my whole life, and I'm not the best at it by any means, but I would like to think I don't totally suck at it. Like, and I was like, listen, like I have this gift of writing. I have this story, and I want other people to hear it, not because I want it to mean something. Like, I don't want to have gone through this and not have it mean anything to anybody. Like, I don't want it to just die with me. I want other people to hear it, and I want them to know that they're not alone, and I want them to hear all the different ways that I've navigated this journey so that they can do it themselves as well. And when I spoke with my editor, and I was basically straight up with her. I was like, why did you why did you pick up this book? Like, I'm on, like, relatively speaking, in the like influencer space, I'm a nobody. And I was just like, why did you pick me? She's like, I read your book and I cried the whole time.
Oh.
And like, that made me want to cry, because it was, and I hope it's not the last time I feel this way about the book, but it was the first time someone was that touched by something that I had to say and my story, and it made me feel amazing. And I was so grateful to have been, that I didn't give up, so
Yeah.
that somebody could resonate with it that much.
I love that. That's such a beautiful example of persistence and not giving up and knowing when you have a message to share. And it goes back to what you said earlier. You know, we learn through our failures. And hell, if we can learn through somebody else's failures, somebody else's failures and experience, that's even better. I mean, it serves you on your journey as well, because when you go through stuff, I don't believe we go through shit for no reason. Like, that's part of the purpose of life, is to grow, evolve, and learn, and then reach back to our brothers and sisters or whoever it is that we serve and be like, hey, I get you. You got this. I got you, you know? And so I think that is incredibly powerful. And I want to speak to a couple of things that you shared, because you talked about giving food morality. And you also talked, the judgment of good and bad food. Like, yeah. And then intuitive eating, like really being able to listen. I've witnessed so many times men and women that, really have a problem sometimes listening. And we use food to gratify ourselves emotionally often, right? So if you can speak to a little bit about this, that would be, I think, really helpful for our listeners.
Sure. So I like to say that all circumstances are neutral. All everything outside of us is neutral. So if your car broke down, neutral. If you got a cold, neutral. The food in front of you, neutral. Like the cake, if you have cake in front of you, that is neutral. Everyone wants to be like, oh, well, it's bad and it has no nutrients and it's full of sugar and it's processed and da da da. It's neutral. It's what you're making it mean, right? And we attribute, I mean, yes, we could say, sure, it has sugar in it and it's processed or whatever. We could also look at it a different way and say it is representative of celebration. It brings us happiness. It brings us together. It's something that can be created in tandem with somebody else that you love. It is given as a gift of love. So you don't have to see it as this demonic, horrible thing. And I'm not saying that you should be eating cake every single day for every meal and that that's going to nutritionally sustain you. What I'm saying is we don't have to look at it like it's this horrible, horrible thing that is going to lead to our demise. Because it's not. It's not. And the more that we resist it, the more that it will persist. I have a lot of people come to me and they say, I'm addicted to sugar. I can't be around sugar. I can't be trusted around sugar. And more often than not, and the studies back this up, food addiction is a very rare thing to actually have. What we find most often, it's just that you are not allowing it. You are restricting it. And when we restrict something, we want it more and more. So if you allow yourself cake for a while every single day, you will eventually get very sick of it. You don't think you will, because the first couple of times you're going to probably binge on it and you're going to feel sick and horrible. And but that will teach you. You'll be like, okay, well, I don't like this feeling. This sucks. But if you have it all the time, when you see it, it's no big deal anymore. Like the power has been completely taken away from it, and you have taken back the power yourself.
That is such an interesting little tool or trick. I'm guessing this is something you might advise at times.
In fact, this is here we go. Free advice for your listeners. If you want to overcome the fear of a certain food, so let's say I'm gonna leave one of my former clients had this one, and I had to laugh at how specific it was. It was banana Laffy Taffy. It was like, I can't be near it. I can't be near it. So I told her, get one of those like big Costco bags of the single serve ones. I swear her heart was probably beating out of her chest when I was saying this to her. And I want you to eat one every single day until the bag is gone. And I had her journal. I said, I want you to journal this experience after the first one, and I want you to journal the experience after, I don't know, the 64th. And I want you to tell me if your pull and your desire to have more than one was the same intensity on day one as it was on day 64. And it turns out it's not. On day 64, I was like, okay, I've been having this for 64 days. Like, I know it's available to me. I don't feel as out of control around it. And it's called habituation. That's what it's called.
That is such a fantastic tip. I was thinking about that earlier when you said that, how deprivation really causes that like unhealthy drive, right?
Yeah.
So
And
what a great tip. Yes.
Well, I was going to say, if people are at home are like, bullshit, I cannot be trusted. Here's a non-food example that I think a lot of people will understand and resonate with. When you have a partner and they say that they love you for the first time, you're like, oh my God, they said it. They said it, like your heart's beating out of your chest and like you have all these like butterflies, you're something, you're so happy. And then 10 years in, they say they love you. And you're like, yeah, no, love you too. Go take out the trash. I mean, it's still lovely to hear, but you don't have that same like visceral response every single time as time goes on.
That's a great example. And I really love that tip as a way to take your power back. Thank you. I experienced my mother using food as a way to stuff her emotions as a child, and definitely always on a diet, Weight Watchers and measuring and the obsession and the deprivation. And wow, it was such a roller coaster ride. And my mother is still obese to this day. I'm sorry, Mama. God bless you. I love you so much, but it's true. My mom is obese to this day. And people look at me and go, your mother is obese? And I rode the roller coaster with her for a little bit when I was younger. In fact, at some point, my mother made me go to Weight Watchers with her. I think she didn't want to go alone, seriously. So I had to lie and say that I wanted to lose like 10 pounds. It was really weird.
That's hard.
So And so I went through this whole experience with her. And I remember being younger and obsessing about like what I ate or getting drunk and binge eating.
I was
Uh,
there too. Yeah.
well, you know that one. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, right? And I think that's probably a really common one. And so I did end up creating an incredibly healthy relationship with food through so much of my own evolution and growth, because I'm committed, like I'm all in. How can I be better every single day of my life? And I've been doing spiritual practices for 25 years, right? And talking to people like you my whole life. I've been connected with these sorts of resources, right? So it's really, really important work that you do, because it's not often that we get there alone. I mean, it really does take a village and having support. So I love this. I wonder if there is something you would want to go back and say to your 20-year-old self from what you know now. If you could go whisper something in her ear, what would that be?
I would tell her she's already worthy because that's where all of this shit happened. Like I thought I needed the gold star, the A plus, the validation that I needed to rank somewhere in life in order to have my place in it, I guess. And I just I want to take her by the shoulders and just look at her and say, you have nothing to prove to anybody, and we are all so imperfect and messy, and you are going to fail, and so is everybody else. And just to be herself, and that's a journey I've been taking for the rest of my life, slowly but surely, is trying to bring back the pieces of me that I lost when I was in my 20s that I feel like I want to bring back again. So I'm embracing things like the word fuck. Again, it's very hard as a teacher, as a high school English teacher to, like when I first started this business, I was like very careful about it. And now I'm like, I'm like, all right, listen, I can let my hair down a little bit. I have to be me. I have to be me.
Yes, 100%. It's one of my favorite words. It's a verb, it's an action, it's whatever you want it to be.
I say that all the time.
It's such a good word. And you're probably a really passionate person, right?
Oh my
Same.
God. Yeah, I'm Italian for crying out loud.
Me
Like
too. And you're
I grew up.
New York Italian. You're not just Italian, you're New York Italian.
Yeah, well, my mother's from the Bronx, so you can imagine what my house
Perfect.
was like. So yeah, no, I would tell her, and I would tell everybody listening, like, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. Nobody's perfect, and you're worthy just as you are. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to look any different. You don't need to be any different. And that's not to say that you can't try to aspire to be a more evolved version of yourself, but still be yourself.
This brings me to a question. I am not sure if you work with teenagers or children around eating disorders at all. I know you're a high school teacher, but to some of our listeners who are moms and they're raising young girls that are dealing with this, we have a whole new dilemma with not just the print or pictures and magazines that we experienced growing up, but the artificial visions we're looking at through social media distortions. I wonder if you have any suggestions for moms dealing with their young girls in either prevention or opening up a dialogue around this.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I haven't worked with teenagers yet as an intuitive eating counselor. I would
Hmm.
obviously be open to it because of my background teaching teenagers.
Yeah.
I don't have any suggestions off the top of my head for young girls. I would Google it, honestly. There are things out there. I do want people and parents to know that there are resources out there if you feel like your child is going down, a path like that. There are plenty of non-diet registered dietitians, lots of health at every size aligned dietitians and nutritionists. So I would maybe Google either non-diet dietitian or health at every size dietitian or nutritionist. I would also say that if you are a parent who is personally struggling with those things, that it doesn't matter what you say to your child in order to tell them you can coach them to be intuitive eaters all you want. If you haven't resolved your own issues, they will see that. They pay
Mm.
attention much more to what we do than what we say.
100%. That's so beautiful that you brought that in. We teach more through our actions than through our words, right?
And it's generational. It is a generational issue. And it has to stop with you, otherwise it's going to continue. So I would say get help for yourself. That's probably the best thing that you can do for your children is to get help for yourself, get off the diets, learn how to love your body as it is while still pursuing health. And I think that's the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, that's true. I love that. One of the things I did with my daughter when even at a very young age of like 9, I think she was having issues around having a belly and thought she was fat. I pulled up pictures to show her what real women's bodies look like
Okay.
and showed her variations of like, see, look it, that's normal. Women have bellies. Girls
Yeah.
have bellies, you know?
Well,
Um,
that's another thing that, and again, anybody who is trapped in the fat phobic messages of our society, we can't blame anybody for that because we're literally steeped in it for our entire lives. But you'll hear and I love that that's how you handled it, because somebody else might say to their daughter, "Oh no, honey, you're not fat, you're beautiful." And what that says to her is, okay, so being fat and being beautiful are mutually exclusive, and you have to be one or the other, so I can't ever get fat. And that's where we run into issue.
That's a great point. So there you go. There's one of your tips for mothers or parenting. Right? Thank you. I knew you had something in you there, Alana. Okay, before we wrap it up today, my final question for you is what is your big message that you would scream from mountaintops that we might have to be like, okay, can somebody get Alana down?
I would say it is, you can't afford to not get support if you are struggling with food and body and weight. You can't not afford it. And that's something I hear very often. I can't afford it right now. And I'm not saying that you need to starve yourself and your children, not put food on the table, and not have a roof over your head or a car to drive to work. What I'm saying is, when I was a broke grad student, I didn't have a lot of money either. And I used that as an excuse to not get a therapist or a nutritionist. And I struggled for a lot longer than I had to. And even though I was a broke grad student, I was spending money on things like, what grad students did, booze and vacations and, lunch with my girlfriends. And I could have taken some of that money and I could have invested in somebody that was going to help me, somebody that had expertise. I suffered so much longer than I had to. And I was believing this bullshit narrative that a lot of women are socialized to believe, that we're supposed to put ourselves last, and we don't need to invest in our mental health, and we should pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and just fucking deal with it. And you can't enjoy anything else in your life to the fullest extent unless that part of you is healed. Like, I think about the vacations I went on where I didn't even enjoy the food and felt really self-conscious in a bikini the whole time. So the entire vacation was spent worrying about my food and my body and not about being in the present moment. And I'm so glad that I healed this before I had my son Archer, because I would be kicking myself if I were spending vacations with him worrying about that bullshit.
Oh,
So yeah,
seriously.
it's hard, but you know what? I've had clients, take out loans, put it on a credit card. I have payment plans. I very much honor the fact that this is an investment. But when somebody, whether it be me or another professional in the space, when someone is telling you that they can solve this issue with you for good, so you can have your life back, it's something to definitely consider and not just sweep under the rug as an I can't afford this luxury, quote unquote. It's not a luxury. It's your entire life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And it has been such a fun chat and share with you. It's so engaging. Yeah, you're really fun, and beyond fun, you bring such depth and real solutions and clearly real level of caring. So thank you. It has been a blast and a gift to have you here on the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast. Tell us where our listeners can find you.
Sure. So everything is on freedomwithfoodandfitness.com. You can get lots of free resources there. You can listen to my podcast. You can see how you can work with me. My signature program is called Defy the Diet. There are several different package options for that. You can schedule a free call with me there. And as a free gift, if anybody wants to see how their thoughts and emotions are affecting their relationship with food, they can go to freedomwithfoodandfitness.com/chill out. And that that is where they'll get a free, it's basically my signature coaching model. It's the process I bring my clients through, and it's called Chill the Fuck Out. So it brings you through the circumstances, thoughts, feelings, and outcomes for your life, so you can kind of see how you're affecting how your life is forming. So yeah, it's freedomwithfoodandfitness.com/chill out.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Alana.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. This was awesome.
I'm Lisa Eddy, your host of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast, which is now being shared here on YouTube. I hope this episode brought you insights and inspiration to radiate and shine with confidence. Remember to subscribe so you receive new episodes hot off the press right when they are released. And follow me on Instagram for more juicy tips at I am Lisa Eddy. Also, ladies and gentlemen, when you subscribe, like, and share these episodes, it helps me to get seen by more people. And that means a lot to me because I am committed to reaching millions of women across the globe and waking them up to the sacred beauty lifestyle, owning their true power and beauty, both inside and out. Now, more than ever, we need more women shining instead of hiding. When we band together, we are unstoppable. This is how we change the world, together. Remember the sacred beauty lifestyle and get on out there and shine. The world needs your light.